Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan, Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk about the formation now around certain highly populated centers around Europe and soon to be happening here in the United States. It is actually going on, but just without being publicized so much. But these are what we call no-go zones. And these are places within a community or within a country where people of a certain category are told not to visit for fear of causing turbulence and causing a reaction from the indigenous people living there. So they don't want people visiting. They don't want tourists going certain places because it might inflame the local population. And the police and the authorities in these areas say, if they get upset, we can't control them. What am I talking about? Well, we're talking about the rise of Islam and the practices that go with the Islamists within these communities. I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about Islamists. There's a big difference, although it's hard to determine and it's hard to see. And I'll try to showcase that with using green apples as a sort of a metaphor. Now, I'll be using the green apples because this is a tribute to a gentleman who's an online commentator and a very valid, I would say, Socratic method thinker. And this is a young man from Russia by the name of Konstantin Kisin. Kisin. Maybe some of you have seen him before. He does pretty good, thoughtful podcasts. And he gave a speech not too long ago. It was this month. It was sometime here in October. But he gave a speech, and the topic of his speech was why they will never be honest about Islamist violence. And a lot of people thought that this was going to be inflammatory, and to a certain population, Islamists, yeah, this was inflammatory because it's ripping the bandage off this nasty sore that's festering in our communities and around the world. Muslimists or Muslim people, not a problem because 50% of them really don't give a shit about stuff. They're kind of like typical Christians. They just want to get along. They want to have a safe and secure life. They want to do it by any means possible. They're not looking for conflict. They're not looking for trouble. But a certain segment within this group of identified class of people certainly does want to cause trouble and create the chaos that is such the word of the day right now. Well, Konstantin Kisin used green apples as a metaphor because he didn't want to be talking about people because they get sensitive to things. So he used green apples as the metaphor. And so I have green apples here from my tree in different states of quality, let's put it that way. They're all green apples. Let's turn them around this way. These are all green apples, all right? Nothing seems, outwardly different about them or anything like that. They're all green apples, so you can't tell the difference. But when you turn them around, you start to see there's a little bit of a blemish factor here. There's something that makes them different from the others around them. They're all green apples, but they're different. There's something uniquely different about each one of them. So when eating green apples, and I'm going off of what he discussed, but in eating green apples as compared to other red apples and things like that, in my experience, whenever I would eat a green apple raw, many times I would get an upset stomach, at least for a little bit as I was digesting it. The green apples seemed to have a little bit more effect on my body chemistry that was going on. Maybe you've experienced that, I don't know. But to eat a green apple many times would cause a bellyache. Not uncommon. It's been talked about a lot. But what would happen, this was his premise, if somebody started dying, and it wasn't just one, but it was a number of people, started dying. And they were wondering, what's causing all these people to die? What is the common factor? And if somebody was to trace it to the green apples, this one here looks all nice. They say, well, it can't be that. All apples are the same. An apple can't kill you. Well, maybe this one with the nasty sores on it might be the culprit. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the one that looks beautiful and perfect is the one that had the poison in it that killed the individuals. So if this was to be the case and they were to find out that the green apples were poisoned and this was killing people, that would have a chilling effect on things. Why so? Well, in 1989, many of you may recall, many of you weren't even around at that time, but in 1989, there was a shipment of grapes, table grapes, coming out of Chile down in South America. So this became the Chilean grapes scandal or issue. And there had been a report by somebody to say that there was tainted shipment of grapes coming in and that the customs people needed to be looking out for this. So the U.S. Customs Force went about their work and they inspected this load of grapes. And they found two grapes out of the entire load on this cargo ship that were injected with cyanide. Now, what they said, it wasn't enough cyanide to actually kill somebody, but it was cyanide, and it was apparently had been injected in. Now, how they were able to find two grapes out of this entire load of grapes that were damaged with a needle puncture and had this substance inside them, I don't know. So a lot of people think it was a fix. A lot of people think it was never an event. It was designed to try to punish the Chilean farmers and the Chilean government by shutting down imports of their other fruits and things like this, because it was, I think, in the wintertime, so their fruits were what was supplying a lot of the U.S. market at that time. But they never really found the source for this, but what it did do is it caused great economic pain, and it caused a mania in the worldwide discussions going on, especially here in the United States. Everyone was freaking out about grapes, and they said, well, this comes from Chile too, we can't have that. And this comes from Chile too, we can't have that. So this shut people down much like the Tylenol scare did. And I know that's another tainted product situation that happened, but these are little triggers like this can set an entire population off, whether it's genuine or not. So with this apple analogy, so if we were to say that all apples are the same, it's preposterous. The experts have been telling us for decades and decades and decades that the apples are not the problem. All apples are the same. Apples don't hurt you. Apples are safe. But then we find out that there's a group of apples within the apples that is coming in that are causing people to die. What do you do? Well, the investigators would go about trying to source where these particular apples actually came from. And if they were to find a common source of these, and it was all coming from a certain place or farm or something like this, they do it all the time with like E. coli lettuce and stuff like that. They'll trace it to a specific farm or area. Do the same thing with the apples. So if they were to find that the tainted or problematic apples were coming from a specific place, you would expect them to take action on that, would you not? I certainly would. I would hope that they're out to try to protect me against something that I wouldn't normally figure was a problem, but it's a hidden danger inside there. So this is kind of the apple paradox that goes on. Well, it's the same thing that happens with some of our new immigrants, illegal or otherwise, that are coming in. We're getting a huge number of Muslims being brought into the country or had been brought into the country, and now they're here and they're taking over certain areas. And even in some of these areas, there are quiet, what we call no-go zones being established, where white Christian types are not welcome. One of those is Dearborn, Michigan, where the mayor last month unequivocally stated at a public meeting that Christians are not welcome in the city of Dearborn, Michigan, and that he would personally throw a major parade the day that a certain Christian pastor decided to leave Dearborn and move out. If anyone was to say this about any other religion or any other group of people, there would be a massive, massive investigation by the DOJ, the media, and everyone else trying to establish that this particular person or this particular group of people were out of line and needed to be corrected. But none of that has happened. Absolutely the exact opposite has happened. This guy's being declared sort of a hero. He's being celebrated by people not only in the Muslim community, but in the progressives and things like this. They're really celebrating this and thinking that this is a way to get at the Christians and to try to shut them down and cancel them out. Why would they want to do that? Power. So what they want to do is they want to throw these words around all about phobes. So if you were against the green apples being brought in from certain places around the world that had problematic ingredients in them, you would be labeled a greenophobe. It's a bad apple. Is being careful about things, is that being phobic? I don't think so. I think it's what you call using common sense reasoning. So for the longest time, we've been told that all apples are the same and all apples are, safe to eat and there's nothing wrong with the apple. But then when we find out that there is a problem, they don't want to talk about that. They want to keep saying that the apples are all safe, because the experts have been declaring this all their lives, that there's nothing wrong with the apples, it's got to be you. So victim in these cases. So for all this time, and this all started, I think, after World War II, was when Islam, the leaders of Islam and their poor ideas wanted to declare that Islam is a religion of peace. And they wanted to keep standing on that statement that Islam is a religion of peace. Okay, let's examine the facts. All right, since the year 2004, because I went back like 20 years, since the year 2004, there have been over 65,000 terrorist attacks done by Islamists and Muslims around the world. And in that time, over 250,000 people have died. 250,000 people in 20 years. Now, from the era from 2004 until 2012, Obama's second term starting, there was only 8,000 attacks around the world. I mean, it's a lot, but what has happened since 2012 and Obama's second term? The Islamists have gotten bolder. They got really bold. So much so that they've done over 56,000 attacks around the world since 2012. The numbers aren't going down, and the death rates are going up. So many of these right now are in countries like Syria and Nigeria and places like that. And the victims there are not other Muslims. No, they're all Christians and Catholics being slaughtered. Where's the world? Where is the concern? Where are the elitists in this argument? Why are they not standing up and saying something? Well, they keep repeating the mantra that Islam is a religion of peace. Because if they do that, that makes you the bad guy for questioning them. And then it stops any real conversation that really needs to be had at this point. So the answer to this is not to sit down and shut up and point fingers at each other, is you need to have real, verifiable facts being discussed in an open forum so that everyone can see and not be blasted down and told to sit down and shut up by someone when you start getting too close to the truth about a matter. You know, it's crazy. But during this Biden shutdown here with the COVID situation since 2020, when the governments around the world started using these NGOs or non-governmental organizations to do their dirty work, you know, the U.S. government and I think over in Europe they did pretty much the same thing under different names and different labels. But what they did was they used government money to help try to drive in a dispassionate immigrant class that really doesn't have your country's best interests at heart. What they want to do is to import their culture and assimilate you to them. You must become part of their culture. Otherwise, you're a phobe. I mean, they can put whatever they want in front of it, but this is their plan. And so what they did here in the United States is they used people like the Lutheran Church, the Methodist, the Catholic Church, with their charitable organizations, paid them to drive all these immigrants in, but no one was checking or vetting to see who these people were or what kind of apples they might have been bringing with them. Who's to blame? Who's to share the risk on these things? Why is a dispassionate group of people who didn't really have a dog in the fight all of a sudden have to be the ones to pay the bills on these things? Why do they have to become a subjugated victim class? Why is it they can't go certain places that used to be well-traveled and normally visited by everybody, but now they're not welcome? It's happening more and more and more. You know, we have people crying under the label of Antifa. The No Kings rally the other day showed that most of the people in Antifa are a bunch of blue-haired, older, you know, average age, I think, of Antifa right now is 68.7 years if you went by what was seen on the TV the other day with the No Kings rallies. You know, a bunch of Q-tips running around screaming obscenities about things that they really don't have any real reason to be saying about because they don't have facts. They just have emotions. So what we have to do with this to try to shut down the damage that's been done so far is the first thing you have to do is eliminate the emotion. We have to get the emotions out of the discussion, and we have to deal with the facts. And then we have to understand that words have meaning, and you can't just change the meaning of words around to suit your emotions. So we're going to be having discussions on this. I can't wait for Alex to get back in the studio so we can discuss this a little more openly, even from his viewpoint on things, because he's been doing a lot of reading and accumulating of viewpoints this last month as well. So I'm very interested in seeing what he has to say. I'm going to be following more of these no-go zones and how, actually in London right now I was reading that they are going to be passing a law all throughout England that you can't challenge people on their faith or questioning things like this in the street. To have these discussions openly and for the world to see. These unchallenged and unmoderated, what you would say, street discussions and debates. They want to eliminate that because they said it causes hate and division. Well, it's not the discussion that's causing the hate and division. It's the viewpoints and the entrenched ideologies that are causing the problems. So this is where we have to have a very solid discussion, remove the emotions. Let's get back to the facts, and let's try to fix this. So in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.